learn as you go. But don't let people, right, stop you by you worrying about what they think.
Ali G, thank you for joining us here today on The Go and Manav. For those that don't know you, could you please tell us a bit more about yourself?
Hi, I'm Ali G from Ali G Studios. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, Manav, for having this podcast, for having me as a guest, and also a big thank you to all the listeners and watchers of the podcast. I'm very happy to share my journey with you as an entrepreneur, as a photographer. So let's go.
Awesome. Thank you for that lovely introduction, Ali. So I know you as a photographer, but for people that might not know you, could you please tell us what were you doing before then?
I work as a professional photographer in Hong Kong. I go between Hong Kong and Los Angeles. My parents are based there. But before that, I was actually an engineer. And in between engineering and photography, I had a small trading company where I was selling chicken feet. I was trading chicken feet from Brazil to China. And that was the best business I ever had. It taught me a lot of things about the business world, from banking to trade to shipping, documentation, accounting, all the things which I didn't actually need to know as an engineer, right? But I think being an engineer gives you kind of the foundation and the skill set to be able to absorb and to learn and to, understand a lot of those things which come across to you in life.
Was becoming an engineer by choice? Was it something that was run through your family, or was there a particular experience that inspired you to become an engineer?
I am an immigrant story. I lived through a war and a revolution in Iran, and my parents took myself and my sister out of the country, and we went to the UK, and then we went to France, and eventually we made it to the United States. So we were an immigrant story. And, coming from Asia, from Asian parents, usually you become a doctor, an engineer, or accountant, or something like that. But I actually enjoyed mathematics and science. So engineering was a natural path for me to follow. And engineering gave me a lot. I got to meet amazing people. I got a scholarship to university. And that helped me to actually build part of my life in the United States and helped me to get the job, which eventually allowed me to come to Hong Kong and to see what this part of the world is about.
I cannot imagine how that must have felt like during those moments. You working within engineering, how did this now translate you into doing photography? What was that real photography experience that first time like?
I actually started photography at the fall of the Berlin Wall. I was in Berlin with a hammer breaking down the wall and taking photographs. My uncle gave me my first camera. So this is November of 1989, and historic moment. And he said, this is a historic moment. Make sure you go and take photos. So I didn't know anything about photography, and back then was all film, right? It was not digital cameras. So I was there with a hammer breaking down and taking photographs. So I decided to focus on the things which I could actually see better, which was the people, the emotions of the people, and the details, right? Because you couldn't see the photographs right away, right? Being a film, camera. So that allowed me to create that as the foundation of what is my photography today, which is a lot more people based rather than product based. I started with the Berlin Wall, and then photography stayed with me as a hobby. So going through the university and so on and so forth, it was just a side hobby, right? So I had always had my camera with me. And in 1996, I had the opportunity to work in the Olympic Games. But I was not working there as a photographer. I was working in sports information. Okay, so I was a supervisor for the soccer, meaning if people wanted to set up practice, transportation, safety, food, security, all these things. So I got to be exposed to that whole world of international athletics, the amazing athletes which we get to see on TV. I was seeing them in person, right? I got to photograph President Clinton, who came to the Olympic Village one of the days, and that was one of the highlights. And that was one of the first photos that I have till today. Is the President Clinton's photo shot on film. I print that out and I take that along with a piece of the Berlin Wall when I go to schools now to make presentations about my life journey, or when I talk to podcasters such as yourself.
That must have felt like a dream in that moment. Interesting to know that photography was a hobby for you at the time and you weren't really doing photography at the Olympics. When was the moment you realized now that you wanted to turn this hobby of yours into a full-time job? And how was that transition like, turning it into a full-time job? Because obviously you have to work your way up.
While in Hong Kong, I had the trading company going and so on and so forth. And I was no longer an engineer. But what happened was we had financial crisis, 2008, 2009. And I said, what if I turn my passion, which is photography, into my profession? Okay. So I bought my first digital camera, Nikon camera, and I started in the nightclubs of Hong Kong, photographing drunk people, DJs, you name it, until people start to see more of my work. And I set up a website, got onto social media channels. Eventually, more people got to see my work, and through the help and support of several key people in my life, I ended up photographing the red carpet. And one of the first photos I ever took there was of Keanu Reeves and Donnie Yen. So that picture blew up for me. The event sponsor was Moet and Chandon. They saw the photo, and then through a friend's contact, who eventually got my work seen by them, I ended up working for LVMH for about 6 to 7 years as a freelancer, photographing all their VIP events, red carpet events. And that was for me a dream come true, because now I get to do red carpet, I get to do VIP events, I get to do photography, and now I can earn a living doing the thing that I was passionate about, but turning it into a business.
Excellent. That's incredible. So, did you feel like VIP photography, red carpet events photography, those were the types of photography that allowed you to make it or make a career out of it? Or was there something particular within club photography out of it?
What happened was the red carpet events, they give you a lot of credibility, obviously, because you're there, working for a brand. It's great for the portfolio, great for the CV, right? So I photographed, like I was saying, Keanu Reeves, Donnie Yen, Uma Thurman. I photographed Robert De Niro, Leonardo DiCaprio. I photographed Aaron Kwok, Fan Bingbing, so on and so forth, from the Asian stars as well. I ended up going to Hollywood to work on a movie set, and that was from a great producer of the movie. They saw my work. They said, you know what, we'd like to have you to do behind the scenes work. So I flew there to New Orleans. I was on the movie set. I get to work with people like Shirley MacLaine and Christopher Plummer and Ed Saxon. Ed Saxon had actually won an Oscar for producing Silence of the Lambs. Okay, and also Shirley MacLaine, Christopher Plummer, also they were Oscar winners. So that was an amazing experience. So you bring all that back to Hong Kong. Now you've got an amazing, a very strong portfolio, right? Which you can pitch to people. And since you've now worked in that level, right, then people know that if they hire you, you know how to work under pressure, you know how to work fast, you know how to deliver fast, how to edit, your lighting. You can't stand there in front of a celebrity and be like, yeah, my settings, yeah,
No,
right?
you
You've
learn through
already lost
experience.
them. They don't have time. You have about maybe 5 to 10 seconds to grab that photo, and then they're off with their entourage and so on and so forth, right? So that transitioned for me into more people photography, right? And people who saw that I can get along with people, and I can get the great shots, and the money shots, as we call it, right?
Yeah.
And that transitioned me into more of the events in Hong Kong, as well as started getting into the weddings in Hong Kong.
There is a lot to talk about there, but I actually wanted to touch a bit on the previous question because, firstly, Silence of the Lambs is one of my favorite movies. But how
Mm.
did you feel in the exact moment being able to photograph such high profile celebrities like Robert De Niro, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Keanu Reeves? What was that moment like for you?
They were all different because Keanu Reeves was on a red carpet. So, he came, he was here for a movie event in Hong Kong, for a charity event. And then he came, he did some poses. Then Donnie Yen came, they did some poses, did some photos, and he came up close to the camera so people can take a nice photo. And then he went, into the green room and so on. With Robert De Niro, it was very different because Robert De Niro, it was actually at an opening night of a movie in Macau. And I went all the way to the front to try to get that photo. And with celebrities, you can't just keep popping flash into people's eyes, right? So what happened was I tried to use the light from the screen hitting his face to get the photo. So when I went to the front and I was ducked down, it was very dark. He saw me, and I said, "Mr. De Niro, if you don't mind, I'd like to take couple of snaps, and then I'll be, out of your way." He said, "Okay, go ahead." So I took some of those photos, and then I got my way back to where I was stationed, and waited for the rest of the movie to be finished. And then I took the photos on stage and so on and so forth. So they were all very different. And I think that's part of your engineering background, is you kind of know how to solve problems, and then your experience as a photographer of people, right, helps you maneuver through those situations, right? So if I don't know my camera inside out and I'm there next to Robert De Niro and there's only a light coming from the screen, if I don't know my settings, if I don't have the right lens, I can't get the photo. right? But I can't go there without knowing that I want to get that photo without having caused a major disturbance, right? Imagine a room with 1,000 people sitting there and you're standing in front of the stage popping flash, right? I mean,
Of
you walk
course.
away looking like a clown.
One thing I like about you, Ali, is the fact that you talk about the beauty of photography. It's not just a snippet. You're actually talking about the fact that it can transition to so many different like fields and elements. Moving forward and carrying on from what we actually were picking up earlier is about wedding photography. So could you please tell us a bit more about your first experience in wedding photography, and are you still doing it today, and why are you passionate about it?
For me, the wedding day is the happiest and the most auspicious day of a family's life, other than the birth of their child. Okay. So I
Yeah.
thought if I can make that to be part of my career, meaning sharing in those, auspicious moments, good vibes, happy moments, then I'm actually doing something impactful because I'm creating memories for people, but I'm also having a great time myself sharing in those kind of moments and positive energy. So I started with just doing some couples photography that transitioned into doing civil weddings, right? So then it was like civil weddings and pre-weddings, right? And then from there I managed to get into get contact with some of the great wedding planners of Hong Kong and overseas, and started to do some smaller weddings. And then I transitioned because I was confident enough now to transition to the bigger weddings. You talk about Four Seasons. I got into the Indian, wedding market, which was spectacular for me. That was a whole other, level of photography, which I was not prepared for initially. Just the grandeur of Indian weddings and the colors and the senses. I mean, you would finish day one of day four, just come back to your hotel room and just you just crash because it was a sensory overload, right? But it was such an amazing experience that I said, I would love to do more of this. So I started to excel in that area, and people obviously liked my work. So they, with weddings, a lot of it is by referral. So they said, hey, who did your wedding, photos? I love them. Oh, it was Ali G. Talk to him. So at one point, I was even doing, 3 to 4 destination weddings a month. Sometimes even going to multiple destinations just from the same wedding. So, for example, I would shoot a wedding in Bangkok, and then we flying to Chiang Mai for the next wedding, right? But without coming back to Hong Kong, right? And that was an amazing experience. I wouldn't trade that for anything else. I think that my niche as a wedding photographer is well known now, and I would like to continue building on it because I really enjoy it.
How are you able
Mm.
to adapt to such different types of photography? So again, club, now VIP, events,
Mm.
wedding. Is there like a coping mechanism? Is there something that's keeping you going? How are you able to adapt to such different fields? Because that's really impressive.
I think what a lot of people don't understand, especially when they set up a business, any business. So I'm actually not in the business of photography. Okay.
Okay.
So it sounds counterintuitive. It sounds maybe wrong, but let me explain. So I'm not in the business of photography. I'm in the business of people. Okay. Do you think that a bride and groom who wants to consider flying you to Bali for their wedding for 4 days or 5 days, do you think they want to put up with you if you're an a-hole for 4 days? No. Okay. So, first of all, you have to be a people person, right? And you have to understand that for most of the couples you're photographing, this is their first wedding. So they have all kinds of butterflies, right? They've got all kinds of anxieties, stress, because weddings are all about the human factor. When you have the human factor, always something goes wrong, right? Somebody can't
Yeah.
find their shoe, somebody can't find their bow tie. Where do we put the wedding rings? Oh, the flower girl, poor girl, she's now sick. She's got the flu. She can't walk down the aisle, right? We can't find our puppy. He was running around the thing, right? So you can't come in and add extra stress to that. You have to come in, number one, knowing your stuff, right? So that in their mind saying, okay, at least, you know what? I've got Ali. The wedding photography is taken care of. Now I can put my energy to fixing all the other things that I have to worry about. I'm not worried about the wedding photography because I know he knows what he's doing. So that's number one. Number two is you have to go in, try as much as possible to solve some of those problems, right? To say, okay, you know what, guys, there's too many people in this room right now, and everyone's kind of doing their own thing. It's getting loud. It's causing the bride some stress. So maybe talk to the wedding planner, talk to the bride, and say, hey, do you really need all these people here? If not, maybe we can put some people in another room and they can keep getting dressed and get ready and whatever it is they're going to do. But you can have a little bit more moment of silence, which now you can tend to the things you need to tend to, right? Whether it's the flowers
Yeah.
or the music or the DJ, whatever it is, right? So you have to kind of, position yourself as also a problem solver, right? So if someone comes to you and says, well, I like to do a photo there, you can't just throw that back to them. Say, well, I don't know. I don't know the thing. No, no, no. They hired you to come take those photos. So you got to figure it out, right? So again, part of it is engineering background where you have to be able to problem solve. And the other part is you learn as you go, right? I'm actually an introvert by nature, but going through weddings and events, I've trained myself to be engaging with people to make people feel comfortable, right? So then it's much easier for them. They see you as either a part of furniture, which is fantastic because you don't want to be noticed. It's not your day, right? You're not there to be the star of the show, right? So because I see a lot of photographers, they do this and that, they try to take charge and they become the center of attention. I'm like, okay, this is the bride's day, right? So you just have to,
Yeah.
kind of put that energy out there, let the energy kind of work its magic, right? And at the same time, they know you're there, but you're not there, right? So I always say the best photographs are when you don't see the photographer. Okay, when you see the moment, the emotion, the passion, when you don't see the photographer.
And I think that's what makes you really unique, at least the fact that you were able to blend in your engineering background and also the experiences you've learned throughout your career, and then eventually allow you to stand out and also find ways to really highlight within wedding photography, for example, the bride and the groom, and make it
Mm.
their day, because that's the purpose is you need to have that people skills and communicate with them. So it's great to see that you've learned it all and picked it up through experience. But when COVID-19 hit,
Mm.
could you please tell us a bit more about that experience? How's it like for you? And how did your business survive during all of that?
COVID came, no destination weddings, no events, no people photography. Nobody even wanted to see you, right? Two different ways of thinking, right? One is, oh man, this is the end of it, and what am I gonna do? And it's like how am I gonna cope? And maybe hey, maybe I go to Johnny Walker, and maybe Absolute, and maybe drown my problems. Or the other way is saying, well, how do I actually transform myself? How do I pivot? Right? How do I now develop other things, other skills? And that's the route I decided to take rather than, going befriending Johnny Walker, right? So what I did was I got into Web3. I educated myself. I went onto Twitter, now known as X. I went on Twitter, joined Twitter Spaces, learned about blockchain technology because the technology is fascinating, right? Whether you believe
Yeah.
in crypto or Bitcoin or it's a scam or Ponzi, all that stuff aside, the technology of blockchain has already been adapted and adopted, right, in many many different businesses, including banking, right? Because you can tokenize securities and so on and so forth, right? So I decided to dive into the NFT world with Web3 by taking some of my photos and turning those into NFTs.
So now I want to ask you, were you actually successful by implementing and bringing together NFTs with photography?
I actually created the first NFT collection of street photography from Asia, shot entirely on mobile phones. Okay, that was called Hong Kong Red. So every photo featured a Hong Kong taxi, which is one of the iconic things of this city, right? This amazing city of Hong Kong. And that one, I had such wonderful people who actually enjoyed my work. They collected my NFTs. I also included a signed one of one copy, a hard copy print of the NFT as a print. So I delivered that to them. Plus, they had the collected JPEG on their digital wallet, right? On their crypto wallet. So this was number
Yeah.
one. Second part was I said, well, that was successful. That collection actually sold out within 3 weeks. So then I went and made another collection called Colors of India. I had a big Indian audience, right? And a lot of Indian clients. And there was a lot of people who were also travel enthusiasts who couldn't travel, obviously. So I took some of those photos, which I had taken in the past, and I went to see one of my mentors from National Geographic, right, Ashraf. And I said, I would like for you to help me to bring these down from 50 down to 12 images. So we curated and we got it down to the 12 best images. Then that collection ended up selling out. So from the first collection, which was Hong Kong Red, when it sold out, I took some of those profits and I bought myself a new phone. Okay, because I always have to treat yourself, or when you have success, you should always buy something for yourself as a milestone, right? Secondly,
Definitely.
I used some of the money to buy artwork from up and coming NFT artists. So I spent pretty much all of that doing that. From the second collection, then I decided to support other initiatives right, within the community. So I was one of the founding members of the Hong Kong Web3 Association, and we tried to put activities together and to bring some of the younger people into the NFT space by helping to educate them. So I created Hong Kong's first photography and Web3 photography course for schools as well.
Firstly, I think your NFT collections is fantastic. I mean, I still have the NFT I got from your India collection, the red chili. You know which one I'm
Mm.
talking about?
Yes,
So I
yes.
still have that one with me. Now I want to touch a bit more about, as you mentioned, Web3 photography, but also educating people.
Mm.
What are your thoughts on the rise in technology and, for example, with smartphones? How do you tackle this as well with your photography?
The technology is evolving fast. It's amazing. The quality of smartphones today versus the quality of smartphones in the past are, I mean they're night and day, right? The handling of noise in nighttime photography. Now they're implementing AI things such as filters and so on in it, including camera modes with AI. For example, I've been working with Honor phones, and they got together with a studio Hardcore in France, and they created a type of cinematic look where you can have now the black and white kind of look and the lighting of cinematic lighting, which Arcour was famous for in their photography genre. So they put that together with honor. Okay, so that is actually an amazing collaboration, right? So technology is evolving. Now the newer phones which are coming out, whether it's Apple or Xiaomi or Samsung, they're all focusing a lot on the camera and the lenses. So you see higher
Yeah,
megapixels, right? Better zoom features, better night photography. During COVID, the suicide rate in Hong Kong alone went up 40%. Okay. This
right.
is eye opening. This is sad. This is staggering, whatever adjectives you want to put to it. So you are not going to be able to stop kids from getting on the phone, from getting to the new technology. So, what is the alternative? So, what I propose to a lot of schools and to parents is if you're not going to be able to get the kids off the phone, okay, instead of them playing video games, right, for 3, 4 hours, why don't we actually put together a creative exercise? We teach them about art history, photography as an expressive and creative medium. So parents love this and schools love this too. So now I've created Hong Kong's first smartphone photography masterclass for secondary school systems. In the coming years, I would like to expand into more schools, especially the international schools, because my program is still run in English. Unfortunately, I don't speak Cantonese. And that I think has a huge implication which can help with the mental health, with the self-esteem. What do I mean by self-esteem? Part of my program is to put together an exhibition of the students' work at the end of each term, which can be displayed on the screens at the school, right? Whether it's at the entrance or during assembly and so on and so forth. Now, I
Right.
never had that opportunity. I never even had that technology, right? To be able to showcase my photography at a school in front of everybody. So now with this program, I will curate the best photographs and the school can actually display it. Okay. And the next step is what? Go to art galleries, right? Hey, art gallery, would you like to do something nice for the community? Yes, I would love to do something. Great. How about we do one night exhibition in print of the best works of my students? And we can invite the students, we can invite the parents. Imagine, right, as a 14-year-old, 13-year-old, 16-year-old, seeing your work in print at a prestigious gallery in Hong Kong, what that does for your self esteem, and the fact that,
Amazing.
you know what, if I want to become an artist, I can, right? If I want to become an accountant, fine. If I want to become an engineer, fine, right? But now you've added that dimension, right? That eye opening experience to some of those kids. So that is kind of my goal where I want to take this stuff.
I think it's brilliant and really hope that you're able to definitely do that in the next few months, years, if possible. I mean, I like how you're turning something that's been seen negatively, especially during COVID-19, where,
Mhm,
mental health's been really serious and the
mhm,
suicide rates as well, but actually trying to now get back to the community and encourage and inspire younger people to actually not just go after your passions, but also find ways to be creative and just explore and step out of your bubble by seeing the fact that you can play with photography and really blend it in with like technology and AI, but also just educating people as well. I think that's the best thing. Has there been a particular lesson you've learned from educating these young entrepreneurs? And I'm also going to tie this to the next question, which is
Mhm.
what sort of advice would you give to young entrepreneurs or aspiring photographers and content creators?
The first part of the question was, have I learned anything from this teaching, right? So
Yeah.
I've learned that the kids are super creative, okay? But in general, no one's really guiding them, meaning outside of the school realm, right? No one's really guiding them unless the parents enroll them, in an art class or painting class and so on and so forth, right? Other than that, it's up to them to go on YouTube if they're interested in something, right? So what I like about the programs of schools now is they allow something like, it's called ECA, extracurricular activities, right? Or in the case of one of the schools I work with, it's called deep learning. For 3 days, students have to sign up for a specific program, whether it's photography or it can be, stage acting, for example, right? It can be that they had something about circus. So people learn how to be a circus performer, like within 3 days, right? Amazing programs, right? The parents can guide them. And I've learned that there's so much creativity out there. There's so much creative energy. We just have to kind of guide them, right?
Yeah.
Most of them already know the technology. Here's the big thing, right? Everybody has a phone, right? Everybody knows that the phone can take amazing photos, but not everybody knows what is a good photograph and how to tell a story. So this is what I try to teach them, right? And a lot of it is basically it's experiential. So we have some theory, then we're outside shooting, hands-on. Okay. So this is the first, part of the question. What I've learned is just that I've seen kids these days can be amazingly creative. You just have to give them the right guidance and the right tool, and then, teach them and then let them run with it. And what was the second part of the question?
The second part is the advice you'd give to young entrepreneurs or aspiring photographers and content creators.
The best advice I can give to young entrepreneurs or content creators or whoever is, if you have a full-time job, okay, keep it, because you need that income, right, to pay your bills, expenses, transportation, whatever it is. Start your creative journey as a side hustle. Okay. So work at nights, work on the weekends. Let's say if it's photography, right? Go out on the weekends and do a bunch of, photos, or if it's videography or YouTube, go on the weekends and shoot it. Edit at night, right? So build that side hustle until it gets to be considerable enough where it's actually generating income. Okay. If you want to be doing that full time, right? Until it's generating income. And at that point where it's generating income, when the income starts to get almost the same level, right? Or maybe just a little bit below. So you just need a little bit more extra push on this side than your full-time job. Then you can say, you know what? Let me take off 6 months, go on sabbatical, or 1 year, or whatever it is, right? Whatever it is, right? Or just plain resign, whatever. And I'm going to now go in 1,000% into making this side hustle to be my main hustle. What's
Yeah.
happening is a lot of artists, in fact, the words starving artist became people who had no other income. They were trying to make a living through their art, and they were struggling. They were going to galleries, and galleries like, well, I charge you 40% because I got to also pay rent. So if I'm going to sell you artwork, I need to take 40% commission, right? So then what was happening is they were kind of a slave to that, to that industry, and then nobody was buying and this and that. So all the time they were on a budget and this and that, right? Of course, that also affects their art. But if they can, just go get a job at McDonald's. It's fine, right? It pays your bills, covers your phone, right? Buys your canvas, your paint, your new phone, the microphone you need for your YouTube channel, whatever it is, right? And then build that content. So that's number one. Number two is consistency. Okay, what I see with people like yourself is consistency. Every week, every 2 weeks, I know there's going to be an episode, right, of On the Go with Manav, right? I can count on it.
Yeah.
It pops up on my LinkedIn, on my Instagram, on my Facebook. That's consistency. You're always in front of my eyes. Your brand is always there. Brand awareness, right? Your persona. Now you're evolving, doing better things, more things, higher value things, right? So consistency. What happens is people think that what you do is easy. They don't see the hours of shooting, editing, right? Coming up with the questions, and then so on and so on. Just making a thumbnail is a labor, making a thumbnail for your podcast. So people see the end result. People see the end photograph of a wedding in a magazine. They say, "Oh, I can do that." They go buy the latest Sony, Nikon, whatever, thinking that the camera is gonna just make the photo magically appear for them. That one is skill set and also consistency. So if you're going to become a content creator, you need to have at least 2 to 3 months of content shot and edited, ready to go. When you start posting, then you're not all the time stressed about what am I going to post tomorrow. I better go make this reel now because tomorrow I have everything to post. Then it actually becomes unenjoyable, right? Not enjoyable. So if it's going to be not enjoyable and it becomes very laborious, do you really think you can keep the consistency? You can't, because in the beginning there's no traction, right? In the beginning, it's not like I'm going to make one reel and hit 1 million followers and I'm going to make a $1 million deal. It never works that way, right? Maybe 2 or 3 people have had videos gone viral, but if you really study, right, their things, they did a lot of videos before that, right? Until they went viral. Then they were consistent and they found the formula of the virality, and so on and so on and so forth. Okay, so I would say hard work and consistency, and keep your full-time job if you can.
All three really good advice, and I completely agree. And I think consistency definitely wins at the end of the day. So I think you definitely nailed it. Now, we're almost near the end of the podcast, and I just have a few questions left. I would like to now dive into understanding what are you up to nowadays?
At the moment, I am going quite full on with the smartphone photography masterclasses. And I'm also doing the adult photography classes with the smartphone, okay, because everybody has a phone. And I'm working with a variety of clubs and so on. I've got now 5 different workshops: smartphone photography and social media, food and portraits, because everybody always asks me, for example, how do I look skinnier? How do I look taller in photos? And in Hong Kong especially, we have a famous saying that the phone eats first. Okay, so when the food comes out, everyone's taking photos of their food, right? But a lot of times the food photo quality is very poor, right? So I teach people how to do that in a workshop. Then I've got introduction to smartphone videography. I've got advanced smartphone videography, and I've created a new one called travel photography lessons from National Geographic. So for example, when you're traveling, how to find the best angles, the best times of day, how to take photographs of strangers, right? How to approach people on the street, right? That's a skill that you build on, right? So these, and then of course the school programs as well, and also launching adult photography workshops in Hong Kong and destination using the pro camera. So this is how to work with models, how to understand lighting, okay, how to choose a location, right? All of these things which the regular people who are not doing photography would love to learn. So we have makeup artists, paid models, right? Great locations, fantastic lighting. We have lighting from Aperture, from Photix. They're amazing people and very supportive. So we'll be launching these, and hopefully also be able to launch these at destinations in Europe or in the US or even South America.
I can tell that you just love what you do, and I think that's the main thing.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you said that you can teach people on how to get the best angle. Do you mind sharing a tip of how people can actually do that?
Absolutely. I would demonstrate actually. Most people will pose, like this, right? So you have this situation, you see all this stuff here, right? Not very sexy, right? I have my double chin and all that stuff, right? So most people kind of just lean back and kind of become flat to the camera, right? So you have all this stuff. So the key to get the best angle is, number one, have an angle to the camera. So don't be flat, right? Flat equals unflattering. Okay, right? Keep that in mind. So don't be flat to the camera. So have an angle to the camera first. So first I'm gonna set up an angle. Now I've got an angle. So already, right, as you can see, my mass has gone from here, right, all the way to here. Okay, right? By the way, this is my branded shirt, LDG Studio. So have an angle. Now what you want to do is you face the camera, and now what you want to do is define your jawline by leaning slightly forward. So here is how we do it. So I'm going to be here, and I'm just going to just turn to here, turn to the camera. I'm going to just slide forward. So now I've defined my jawline. I've gone from this, right, to this.
Very, very cool. Hopefully people definitely take that away right now. Make the most of it. So we're now coming towards the end of the podcast, and I have one last question for you, Ali, and that is, thinking about everything we've discussed and how the revolution has obviously was a key moment for you in terms of getting into photography, what one piece of advice would you give to your 16-year-old self back then who did not really know what was going on and just not
Hmm.
seeing how the world is changing at that
Hmm.
moment and now how it has changed right now? What would you say to that 16-year-old Ali G?
Great question. I haven't really been asked that before. What I would say is stop worrying about what other people think, because we go through most of the time trying to impress people, right? Or we care about what they think or being judged and so on. But stop worrying about what people think, right? You want to become a photographer? Go practice your craft. You want to become an accountant? Go study, go to take the course online, offline, college, whatever it is, right? You want to become a podcaster? Go shoot a bunch of podcasts. You will learn as you go. But don't let people, right, stop you by you worrying about what they think. Okay. So this is I would say, the top advice, what I would give to my 16-year-old self.
And I really wish I learned that sooner because I completely agree.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much, Ali G, for joining us here today. For people who would like to get in touch, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Well, I have my website, aligstudios.com. Okay. And then I will share with you also my Instagram, LinkedIn, and so on, which you can put at, in the bio of the podcast. My Instagram is aligphoto1. So ALIGPHOTO, the number one, because the first one got hacked and I lost it. So I had to start the new one. And obviously, LinkedIn is a great chance. So we are connected on LinkedIn, obviously, so people can connect that way. And I'm happy to share tips and tricks on photography, advice on entrepreneurship, any guidance, any young people or even older people, who want to get an industry or have about business in general. I'm happy to share all those things. And once again, thank you for having me on this podcast. And also thank you for all the listeners who make the podcast possible by actually listening, and give us a thumbs up. Show us some love, put a comment, put a question down there. I'm happy to answer questions afterwards, which Manav will gather and share with you.
Thank you, Ali, for those positive words of encouragement. And yes, as Ali has said, if you're watching this right now, make sure to like and subscribe. A new guest and episode will be out very soon. Thank you for joining us here once again, Ali, today, and speak to you soon.